So what is intercultural competence? So it's the capability to shift your cultural behavior or a person's cultural behavior and their perspective and adapt the behavior to understand cultural differences and commonalities, so common behaviors between different cultures. So it's being able to function across different cultures and be able to listen and think and act appropriately with people, and of course for yourself, with students of different cultures, and demonstrating appropriate or culturally appropriate behaviour in diverse contexts and adapting to cultural norms while maintaining your own ethical principles. So some important skills for intercultural competence are curiosity and knowledge, being open, respect, communication, empathy, and critical thinking. And we're going to look at 3 different models of intercultural competence, and you can choose any of those frameworks or models to use in your assignment, or you can compare them and contrast them, whatever works for you. But whichever you go for, you might want to go a little bit more into depth, or a little bit in depth in maybe 2 of them and compare them and see what you think. And we can talk about this a little bit more over the coming weeks when we are together in our actual lectures. So intercultural competence is important in society because it helps build stronger communities, it reduces discrimination, and it enhances cultural awareness, and it promotes respect among people from different cultures. It's important in education because it increases cultural diversity in classrooms. It lowers the impact of misunderstandings on teaching and learning, and it promotes inclusive education, and it enhances collaboration and understanding among students. So that's not just between kind of the teacher and the students, but between the students and each other. It helps them to build collaboration, to build relationships, and to understand each other and each other's needs better. Excuse me. Sorry. So the 3 frameworks I'm going to talk about here are the developmental model of intercultural sensitivity, Diodoff's intercultural competence model, and Taylor's model of intercultural competence. So yeah, there are 3 different ones. I'm going to look at them all, and then you can decide what you want to do in your assignment from them. So first of all, this is a developmental model of intercultural sensitivity. So it starts at one end, which is called ethnocentrism, and it goes the whole way along the spectrum to ethno-relativism. So ethnocentrism, if you don't already know, is where your own culture is central to your understanding, to your knowledge, to your actions. And ethno-relativism is where you start to understand your own and other people's cultures within different contexts. So we're going to look at each one of those stages separately. So first of all is denial. So this is right in ethnocentrism, the very, very furthest on that spectrum. And that's being where the person might be able to recognize cultural differences, but they choose to ignore them or avoid them, or maybe they are unable to recognize them and they don't want to find out more, and they just refuse to understand that there is any differences at all. The second one then is defense. So that's moving along slightly. So people who are in this defensive stage, they're probably more aware that there is different cultures, that there is differences between cultures, but they are quite negative or perhaps judgmental of other cultures, or that can be reversed. It's called a reversal. And they're critical of their own cultural values, but not of other people's. And they kind of direct the criticism towards themselves, towards the culture they know, and don't really comment on other people or other people's cultural values. And of course, nothing is perfect. And when you're only focusing on your own or on someone else's or another group of people's cultural values, you're missing something, you're missing the bigger picture. The third stage is minimization. So in this stage, people can see the commonality in the different types of cultures, but they might downplay it. Very common in minimization is statements like, I see everyone the same, I don't see any differences between people, or, all people are the same deep down, those kind of statements. And while the aim of that from the person when they say things like that is to say, I see people as equal, it avoids recognizing that there are differences. There are cultural differences between people, between different cultures, between different groups, so on. And also it avoids appreciation of those cultural differences, it avoids embracing them and bringing them in to teaching practice. So though it is an attempt at being equal, it's important to be able to say, well, actually, I can recognize these differences and appreciate them and understand them. So that's kind of the midpoint. So from there, you can see the spectrum moving along. And then we're moving up into stage 4, which is acceptance. So once people move into this stage, they're starting to be able to recognize, but also appreciate the different patterns of cultural differences and being able to see the common links between their own and between other cultures. And they might be able to see different cultures are the same and their own is different to those and those kind of things. And being able to appreciate that and being able to see, well, this works and this doesn't work and I find this interesting, and being able to accept that these all exist. Then you have the next stage, which is adaptation. So it's being able to shift cultural perspective and change their behavior in appropriate and authentic ways. So that very important word there is authentic, being authentic about their understanding, about their perspective. And then the final stage there, that's when they've moved fully to the ethno-relativism, is the understanding. Ethno-relativism again is understanding their own and other people's cultures. So that final stage is integration, and it's being able to move smoothly in different cultures, around different places, with different cultural worldviews, and being part of different cultures and different culture groups. And it's common enough as people try to develop their intercultural competence or their intercultural sensitivity that people wouldn't necessarily move straight through from stage to stage. You might go back and forward, you might move up and up, but this model is quite linear. It's, you move stage to stage, and you may go back and forward, but you get to an end point eventually. So, apologies, I'm sorry. I've put together some actions here, and you can see them on your left-hand side of your screen. They're in pink, and on the right-hand side then is those stages I've just talked through. And what I'd like you to do, and it's up to you whether you do it or not, I'll never know, but just pause this video for a couple of minutes and just try to link them together. So you have the 6 statements there, the 6 stages there, and link those actions to the stages, what you think within education those mean. It's up to you if you do it, but it will really help to develop your understanding of what that means. So hopefully you had a go at it yourself, and I have actually filled it in here for you. So if you have had a go at it and you got them all, well done. And if you didn't, you got some of them, well done, and delighted you gave it a go. So you can see that when we look at it in an educational context, the denial there is teachers scheduling a test on a major cultural festival. So there's a denial or a lack of kind of understanding or thinking about, well, hang on, students in my class might be interested in this particular festival. Perhaps I shouldn't actually schedule a test on this day because some of them may be unable to attend and so on. Sorry. Then defense is the next one. So defense I have here is teacher thinks students should try harder to learn and gets frustrated at their struggles. So you could have someone who perhaps, maybe there could be students in the class who perhaps are struggling with English. And the teacher in this example is being quite defensive and thinking, well, this is just annoying. Why am I having to put so much extra work in? They need to just try harder. Rather than accepting there is cultural differences, there may be reasons behind it. The minimization. It's saying I see everyone the same. And that is an attempt to promote equality. And it is, remember, we talked before about the difference between conscious and unconscious. It isn't conscious, it's not generally a conscious attempt to make people feel excluded. But when we're saying I see everyone as the same, it takes away appreciation of those different cultures. And then we're moving into acceptance. We're moving further down there. So the acceptance one is when teachers are encouraging students to share their cultural perspectives, which might be, talking about their home life or different cultures, or bringing in books that they like to read and those kind of things. Maybe books they read at home with their family. Don't know. Adaptation. So teacher modifies assessments that accommodate different cultural experience. So rather than having everything in a very Irish or whatever country you are coming from, rather than having everything centered on that particular experience, considering what other cultural experiences you may have in your classroom and how you can accommodate that in your assessments. And then integration. So as a teacher, being able to integrate your understanding through your work. So engaging in regular cultural competence training, but also maybe mentoring other people, helping other people become better at cultural competency.